My beautiful people, let me tell you what is happening in Nigeria right now that has everybody talking. If you have not liked this video, please do it now and subscribe to this channel because you need to stay updated on what is really going on in our country. So there is this story going around about the Sultan of Sokoto being worried because southwest Nigeria allegedly deported 600 Fulani herders who did not have proper national identity documents. Now, before I go further, let me tell you something very important. When I searched everywhere on the internet to verify this particular story, I could not find any credible evidence that this mass deportation actually happened. What I found instead is even more interesting and more important for you to know about because it affects every single Nigerian, whether you are in the north, south, east, or west. What is actually happening right now in November 2025 is that the federal government has just made a massive announcement about banning open cattle grazing across the entire country. President Tinubu's administration has finally taken this bold step that Nigerians have been waiting for many years. This is not a small matter at all, because for decades, the issue of herders moving their cattle freely across farmlands has caused serious conflicts between farmers and herders, leading to loss of lives, destruction of crops, and creating tension in many communities across Nigeria. Now, let me break this down for you so you can understand why this is such a big deal. Open grazing means that cattle herders can move their cows from one place to another looking for grass and water, and sometimes these cows end up on people's farmlands eating crops that farmers have spent months growing. This has caused countless fights, and some of these fights have turned deadly. The government is now saying that this old method must stop, and herders need to adopt modern ranching systems where cattle stay in one designated place. But here is where the story gets even more interesting, and I want you to stay with me because this affects your security and mine. Please like this video if you are finding this information helpful, and make sure you subscribe because we bring you the truth, not rumors. The reason why stories like the one about deportation spread so fast is because there is a real concern about national identity and security in Nigeria right now. The government has discovered that there are many foreigners who have somehow obtained Nigerian national identity numbers, and this is creating a serious security problem. Imagine someone from another country having a Nigerian identity card and using it to move freely in our country. This makes it very difficult to know who is who, and it makes our security agencies work much harder. The National Identity Management Commission has been working to clean up the database and make sure that only genuine Nigerians have these identity numbers. This is connected to the grazing issue because when the government wants to implement policies like banning open grazing or tracking movement of people and animals across the country, they need to know who is a Nigerian citizen and who is not. Many of the herders in Nigeria are Fulani people, and while most of them are Nigerian citizens, some have come from neighboring countries like Niger, Chad, and Cameroon, and this makes the situation complicated. Now, the Sultan of Sokoto, who is the spiritual leader of Muslims in Nigeria and a highly respected traditional ruler, has genuine concerns about how these new policies will affect the Fulani community, especially the herders who have been practicing this way of life for generations. The Sultan is not panicking as some sensational headlines suggest, but he is concerned about how the transition from open grazing to ranching will work and whether the government has proper plans to support herders in making this change. Think about it this way. If you have been doing something one way your entire life and suddenly the government says you must change completely, you would be worried, right? These herders need land for ranches, they need money to build fences and facilities, they need training on modern cattle rearing methods, and they need to know that their way of life is not being destroyed but transformed. If you are enjoying this deep explanation, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel because we go beyond the headlines to give you the real story. The federal government says it is ready to provide support for this transition, but many people are watching closely to see if the promises will be kept. Some state governments in the southwest like Ondo, Ekiti, and Osun have been very serious about enforcing anti-open grazing laws even before this federal ban. They have arrested herders found grazing openly and impounded their cattle. This is probably where the deportation rumors came from, because when authorities arrest herders and send them out of a state, some people exaggerate it and call it deportation. But deportation is a very serious word that means sending someone out of a country entirely, not just out of a state. Nigerian citizens cannot be deported from Nigeria. They can be asked to leave a state if they are breaking that state's laws, but they cannot be deported from their own country. This is why we must be careful about the words we use and the stories we spread, because they can cause unnecessary tension and fear. Let me tell you something else that is happening right now that is related to this identity and documentation issue. The United States government has a list of over 3,000 Nigerians who are facing deportation from America because their stay there is not legal. This shows you how seriously other countries take the issue of documentation and legal status. Nigeria is now trying to do the same thing by making sure that everyone living in our country is properly documented.